Welcome to the Highly Evolved Male Summit. I'm your host, Ethan Lukelter, and today we have Geoff Laughton. Geoff's an internationally in-demand relationship coach and expert known as your relationship architect. For the last 21 years, he's been guiding couples and individuals in designing and building the conscious, spirit-led relationships and life they truly desire. He is also the CEO and lead facilitator of the Evolving Man's men's community. To date, Geoff has worked with thousands of private clients and couples, has led over 300 workshops around the country, and has spoken at numerous live and online events. He is the author of the internationally best-selling books, Instant Insights on Building a Conflict-Proof Relationship, which maybe I should be reading, and Built to Last, Designing and Maintaining a Loving, Lasting and Passionate Relationship. Welcome to the show, Geoff.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Great to have you. So let's start with, tell us about what your life was like before you got into the self-development sort of work and being a coach.
Well, it was definitely a really radically different life than I've had the last 21 years. I was in the corporate world when I got out of college. I wanted to take a brief year off and just get a job and, kind of chill out from my undergraduate work. And so I was working in the corporate world. The plan was I would do that for about a year and then go to grad school. And in that first year, I ended up really liking making money. And I also met a gorgeous woman who then would become my wife. So in that first year, I fell in love and we got together into a committed relationship. And so for the next 15, 16 years, I was going up the corporate ladder, building a management career in the industry I used to be in. And my wife and I got married, and she had a child by her previous marriage. We had one together. So, by the time I was 27, 28, I'd already been married a few years, had 2 kids, and enmeshed in the corporate life. And that lasted about another 8 years. And in that time, my life was this amazing relationship with my wife that remains equally amazing to me 37 years in. We just had our 37th anniversary.
Wow.
And I became a workaholic. I hated my job at that point. I was good at it, but I hated it. I weighed 295 pounds, which I don't know how to convert that into stone, but it was a shit ton of stone.
Yeah.
So I was, I used to think of myself being like the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man character in Ghostbusters. And then I had physical breakdowns that were a bit severe. And then I started having emotional breakdowns that I'd never had because I was working myself half to death and eating myself to death. And that kept me from having to deal or feel any of the stuff that really needed to be healed and worked through. So that got me in my mid-30s. I started working on myself, self-development. And in that first year of doing that, which was like 1993, I remembered that I love helping people. And I remembered that before I got totally sucked into the corporate life, that my ambition was to be a therapist. So that's what I got my degree in, and that was what I thought I'd be doing. So, all those years later, I got reconnected to that passion and started, training anew to be able to work with people and help them. And along the way, I saw that I didn't really want to be a therapist. I was much more passionate and having much more fun coaching people. And that was all before coaching was really a mainstream thing. So that, that got me rolling, working on me, helping other people. And I've been on a nonstop path of my own self-development. And, as you mentioned in your kind introduction, working with people, writing books, speaking like this, doing what an older dude can do to keep himself fresh and helping.
Wow, this sounds like quite the journey. And something that really sticks out from what you said is that at one point you were really quite ill. Tell us about that. How did you feel, and did that give you a bit of a push? Tell us about what was going on.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, it wasn't anything, it wasn't like cancer or anything, but I just didn't feel good. And when you're carrying that much weight on your body, I'll just speak for myself. When I was carrying that much weight, my knees began to hurt. I really couldn't even look at myself in the mirror, or if I did, I kind of went into denial about, this much weight is not healthy. And my energy levels, weren't great. I was having to drink a lot of coffee and mochas and espresso drinks at work, and, snacking. And in hindsight, it was really to cover up how unhappy I was not doing something really meaningful. I was just working for a paycheck. And I needed to do that. I don't want anybody that might be watching this saying I'm knocking hard work and working for a paycheck. My issue was I got this life to do something that was more meaningful to me than what I was doing in a corporate desk job. And so a lot of depression began to seep in. And keeping in mind that this is all happening when my outer life looked great, beautiful family. They loved me. I loved them. Good job, making good money, a perfectly nice house, the 2.4 cars, all the crap that we here in the U.S. were raised to think is the mark of a successful life. So the bodily stuff, I just felt bad, was depressed, low energy, libido definitely got affected. So everything was heavy. And horrible. So then I did injure myself. The breaking point was that because when you're carrying that much weight in front of you, because with us guys, most of the weight goes right to the belly.
Yeah.
And so I had this big gut. I saw a picture of myself the other day when I was weighing 295, and I looked like Jabba the Hutt from Star Wars.
Wow.
And so when you're carrying that kind of weight, it puts an enormous strain on your lower back.
Yes.
So I was having back pain a lot. And one day I was helping people move a picnic table at a picnic that we'd gone to. And I hurt my back bad enough that I was bedridden for about 2.5 weeks. So when you're a male that's used to being a workaholic, and when your whole sense of identity is by how hard you work and how productive you are, and you're lying in bed for 2.5 weeks, you can't walk, you can't get yourself to the bathroom by yourself. That is called humbling. And so that began the break of pretending I didn't have a body that needed to be taken care of. So I lost, over about an 8 or 9 month period, I lost 100 pounds. And then I looked and felt so much better physically, but I didn't change anything else in my life. I was still a workaholic, still working too many hours, still not spending enough time with my kids, who were young then. And so, since I apparently wasn't getting the transformational message, then I started having anxiety attacks, panic attacks. And I'd have them in the weirdest times and the weirdest places. So that was really what I was experiencing. And if you've never had a panic attack, they're awful. And so that was finally the 2x4. You know, the physical stuff wasn't enough. I needed something a little heavier to, you know, slap me upside the head. And that was when I started working on myself in earnest. Wow.
I mean, there's you know, to end up in a hospital bed and anxiety attacks and all that, like, you know, if there's anything that's going to give you a kick up the arse, it's that, right? And, you know, so many of us in life are working jobs that, you know, we think that we should be doing. And we're doing it, you know, because we're in fear a lot of the time. We have to put the bread on the table, or we have to, you know, fulfill this image that society has of us, or whatever it is. And in your case, you know, that was working so hard. And yeah, that really is one way to hit a rock bottom, and for that to be the catalyst to strive, you know, help you move on. In my case, it was different. It was drinking drugs, hit the rock bottom, and then that from there I was able to come up. And yeah, sometimes we need to hit these rock bottoms to kind of spring back, I guess. And yeah, what a hell of a way to do it. So respect for that. Yeah.
I was just going to say that to that point, because this came up just last night in a men's group that I was leading, and somebody said, well, isn't it true that we really don't change until we're in enough pain? And my experience in my own life, and with all the people that I've worked with over the years and friends, I don't know why it has to be that way. I don't think it has to be that way. I don't know why that tends to be the default, but that is the default. We will not change something that a lot of times we even know is not good for us. I knew that it wasn't okay that I was that overweight. But every day my ego found a way to rationalize that. And say, oh, no, this is good. You know, you're the one exception that can be that obese and not have to worry about any health issues. And when I was in my late 30s, early 40s, health issues began popping up. So, yeah, we all, if we're really stuck somewhere, and I define stuck as denying what every intuitive and instinctual bone in your body is telling you you're supposed to be being and doing, and you're just saying, as you would say in the UK, sod off.
Yes.
I don't need that. I'm good. And it does take some kind of breakdown for most of us to begin waking the hell up and at least looking under the hood, as it were, to see, what am I not dealing with?
Mm. Yeah, so true, so true. And I guess this is why sort of self-development work or coaching or whatever is so important, you know, being aware, so that then we don't have to hit rock bottoms, and we can, you know, be more aware so we're not having to hit that. But tell me a little bit about your actual transformation. Like, how did you, you know, what happened with that? How did you get into the transformation? What did you do?
Well, I started thinking back. I had done a bit of therapy when I was in my early 20s, and when this final straw that broke the camel's back happened, I was 35. So I really hadn't done any kind of, other than corporate type of classes and things like that I had taken. So when I started having the panic attacks, I reached out to one of my best friends who, by that point, had gotten heavily involved in personal growth, self-development work, not only as a student, but as a practitioner. And I just called him up and shared with him what was going on for me. So he invited me to do this workshop with him and a couple other of his then partners in that work. So my wife and I went and did that weekend seminar. And in that one weekend, I really began figuring out how the main driver in my life was fear. Fear and shame.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much there for every human being, by the way. It's just a matter of whether you know it and own it and work with it and heal it, or do you do what I did for a long time, which is pick your favorite way, whether it's overwork, over sex, overeating, over drugging, over drinking, over fill in the blank. It's all a way to not have to face that stuff.
Yeah.
So that weekend showed me that I have a lot of work to do and how afraid I was. And there was one part of that seminar where we were all taken out to a wilderness area nearby, and we were taken rock climbing. And I had a horrific fear of heights. So you can imagine how exciting it was to have somebody say, okay, we're going to put this rope on you, and you're going to climb up, 40, 50 feet in the air. So I did that, and then they said, now we're going to have you do it again, but we're going to have you do it blindfolded. All right. Scared the shit out of me. But I learned something really, really valuable that just now telling all of you this story, I'm seeing it in a very different perspective, 25 years later, is that I was less afraid and less in my head when I couldn't see.
Okay.
I couldn't see how high I was. I couldn't see where the next hold was going to be. And I got up to the top, easier and faster when all I could do was go by feel. And that really, in hindsight, that's been a metaphor for my entire growth over the last 25 years. A blend of having to fly blind in that we can't control very much in our life. So the secret to a happier life, in my opinion, is a blend of learning to let go of the illusion that you can control much of anything, and then be willing to be open to letting, spirit, God, the universe, whatever you might believe in, learning to dance with that energy and the signs and the symbols it gives you that say, no, don't go there, go this way. And so really the journey was, I'll just say quickly that the last part of that day out in the wilderness, they had us, scramble up a rock that was, I don't know, maybe 6 to 8 feet high.
Yeah.
But it had an angle that you could just kind of scramble up it. You didn't need a rope or anything. And then when we got to the top, I saw that we were actually at the top of about 150-foot high cliff.
Wow.
And the instructors, my best friend and his partners, said, okay, we're going to rope you up. You're going to be anchored to 2 boulders in the tree, so you're not going anywhere. And we want you to walk up to the edge of the cliff, face forward, hold your arms out like that, and lean over as far as you can. Well, there was no effing way that was happening. And I got hit with the most paralyzing terror that I had ever experienced up to that time. And then after you did that, then they had you turn around and rappel down the cliff. And if you've ever rappelled, you don't get to go forward. You have to turn around and leap off.
Yeah.
So for about 4 hours, while everybody else did both of those things, and my wife was the first one to go and do it. So, and my fragile little 35-year-old male corporate ego, that was even more humiliating. I literally spent the entire time in a fetal position, trembling, sweating on the rock. And everybody did the exercise. They were all down below, back on the deck of the forest. And I'm still up there, and my buddy and his partner are, down. They're like right face on their side, looking right at me, and encouraging me to give it a try. We got you, but couldn't do it. And they taught me a lesson that to this day has served me. And I've taught this to every client I've ever worked with, which is we have as much capacity, energetically, physically, emotionally. We have as much capacity as we have at any given time, and no more. And that where my capacity was that day was to spend 4 hours feeling humiliated, embarrassed, ashamed, and in a fetal position, while everybody else had the courage to do what they did. So they didn't tell me I didn't have courage. They taught me that I had the courage to be up there at all.
Yeah.
And that right now my capacity was to stay there in that fetal position and stay conscious. And I made a decision that day that I was going to do that fucking event if it killed me. And I knew I wasn't going to do it that day, but I made a commitment that if they would let me be part of their crew on future courses and let me try each time, and that I would commit to as many times as it took, I would go farther than the time before. I just would move forward. And it took me about a year, and I want to say maybe 6 or 7 courses that I staffed, and going to different cliffs that made that one look like nursery school.
Yeah.
And then finally the day came where I did it. And that, if I had to summarize 25 years of working on myself, many different types of work and so forth, but the thrust of it has always been keep reaching for expanding what you think you're capable of. Don't set yourself up to fail by saying, oh, because I want to, I'll jump over the Grand Canyon on a tricycle. You know, there are laws of physics, but internally, I really believe we're capable of just about anything. And what's important is you go for it, you fail, you go for it again, you fail, and you keep going. And it's like that with relationships. It's like that if you're a man wanting to evolve yourself and your life. You gotta step up and play.
Yeah.
And that all the different types of work I did, men's work was obviously a big part of my journey, and that totally got me involved in leading men's work, which I never ever would have thought I was going to do. I did a lot of work on healing inner child stuff, and that was profound for me. And so then I spent 17 years doing workshops helping people heal their inner children. So there's been many different kinds of work, a lot of spiritual work, but it's all just been on my deathbed. What I'm committed to is I'm going to take my last breath feeling like I gave it my best, I made a difference to someone, and that I can be proud of my contribution and of the kind of person I am, the kind of husband I've been, the kind of father I've been. And, you know, so far, if I died tomorrow, I'd have very few regrets, but I'm completely committed to staying on that path until it is my last breath.
Yeah, I think if you've gone through an experience like, you know, going up and down mountains for a year, you know, trying to get over that fear. I mean, if there's any commitment, then you've really hit the nail on the head with that, because that was clearly, you know, a massive, massive fear of yours. And, you know, as we know, it's great to walk through our fears, but that was clearly a top level one for you. So well done for you for getting over that and walking through it.
Well, and 3 years ago, my wife and I took a vacation to Costa Rica. And so, you know, going from that story I just shared with you to then 3 years ago when I was 58, zip lining about 750 feet up in the air over the Costa Rican rainforest canopy. And it was such a rush. It was so awesome. So you can conquer any fear.
Absolutely. Yeah, you've certainly shown that. And yeah, what an entrance into self-development work. So something that men will obviously struggle with is sort of past wounding, trauma, and that sort of thing. I heard you mention something called the inner child just then. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure. So, the psychological roots of that kind of work actually began in your country during World War II. And I'm blanking on the man's name, but he was a doctor that was working in a hospital in London during the war. So this was when, London was regularly getting bombed by the Germans. And he noticed that babies and children who were in the hospital that had lost their parents in a bombing, that if those kids had love and touch from nurses, doctors, hospital staff, then by and large, they had a higher survival rate than the kids and infants who weren't getting touched enough. And that began to get him thinking about, what really are the needs of children. So to give you a book's worth of information in a short few minutes, all of us have these, I refer to them as energies, that, nobody gets through childhood unwounded. Nobody. If you're listening to me and thinking, well, I did, you're in denial. Nobody gets out of childhood without being wounded in some way. Wounds being not enough attention, not being loved enough, being neglected, being abused, being sexually abused, having a rageaholic for a parent, having an alcoholic for a parent. That was my deal.
Yeah.
So it ends up being a thing where core childhood needs that every child has don't get sufficiently met. That creates these wounds that generally, at the risk of oversimplifying, is I'm not enough, I'm not lovable, shame, massive shame, because when you're a kid, you're inherently narcissistic. Hopefully you grow out of that.
Yeah.
But little kids think that they're the center of the universe. But that doesn't mean they don't need to be loved and reassured and shown that they matter and shown what's special and unique about them, and to be encouraged to live in that, live into that uniqueness and that specialness that all of us have. And so we go through our adult life, about 95% of the time, we're making our choices from that past wounding and all the stories that we've made up then and since about what that means about us, who we are, who we're not, what we can have, what we can't, how lovable we are, how lovable we're not. And so that was, when I did that work as a participant back in 1993, I think it was astonishing for me. And in my Built to Last book, I write a lot about this too. It was astonishing and liberating for me to find out that so many of the ways that I navigated life was to either get the love and approval that I never felt I got enough of from my parents, or it was trying to not be like them. But when you're trying to be like somebody or not like somebody, either way, you're not being you. So my whole identity, my whole belief about who I was was in that spectrum of not that, ooh, I'd love it to be that. But if I'm thinking I'd love it to be that, I'm already assuming it isn't that yet. And I couldn't say that for sure. That was just what I believed up here. So those wounds, and here's the kicker, those patterns and things we learned growing up, we repeat those same patterns that our parents, not because they're all evil or bad, but everything I'm saying has been going on for generations. So it really is about individuating from how you were trained, what was modeled for you. You know, there's always the expression, I'll never do to my kids what my dad did to me or what my mom did. And then you have children, you find out you do exactly the same damn thing. Yeah. Right? And it's because those patterns are ingrained. So a lot of that work that I used to do with people, and I still do it with my clients here and there, I just don't do the workshops anymore, was around helping people undo those patterns and to begin discovering, well, who's the real you underneath all the wounded compensation that you've mistakenly thought was who you really are.
Yeah, absolutely. I've heard from, I can't remember where I heard it, but apparently your programming happens from birth to the age of 7, I think it is. And that's basically how you act throughout the rest of your life. And yeah, so we get to unravel that through inner child work and releasing that trauma. Yeah, it's an amazing piece of work, really. Massive breakthrough for me, actually. When my personal experience was that when my masks and ego collapsed when I went away traveling and I just had a spiritual awakening, literally I went back to being like a 12-year-old boy overnight, like that. And it was actually quite scary, but that's another story. But you know, you get to then from there rebuild with firmer foundations once you've got rid of those masks. So
yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, we all need to be starting from what's true.
Yeah.
And those masks and those hiding places and, you know, all that unconscious stuff that we mistake for being who we are. It isn't who we are. It's just how we're used to behaving. When you can begin, as you've discovered, when you can begin stripping that away, then you do get back to a different part of both the inner child and the adult, which is the magic that we all have. You know, when I did that zip line in Costa Rica, and I'm not going to say I wasn't scared, but I wasn't that scared. But once I left off, and you're kind of in that point of no return, well, there's no going back. I got to finish this.
Yeah.
I felt like the little boy that I remember used to love playing on the merry-go-round, you know, the one that you would push yourself, or that loved going down the slide, and you know, so that playful aspect of who we were as kids and being at an age where you could believe that anything could be possible, very few limits. Well, put that in an adult body with adult wisdom, you can be unbeatable.
So true, so true. It's almost like you're starting afresh, and you've just got, you know, you can see the possibilities. It's amazingly freeing, isn't it? So yeah, you've had an incredible journey. So you've done the corporate life, you've gone through transformation and done men's groups and men's work, and since then you've become a relationship architect. Tell us how that happened. What's that about?
Well, it kind of, as has been the case with a lot of how my life has unfolded these last 25 years and still continues to unfold, it really came to me. I started a life coaching business, and so I was just kind of a general life coach and was working with people that were just wanting to figure out how to be happier in their life. And then I had a particular client who really had a lot of breakthroughs working with me, and she and her husband then worked with me, and she actually referred me to her parents. And her parents hired me they were at a critical breaking point in what then had been a 34-year-long marriage. And the wife was telling the husband, because us guys, we are usually really late to the party around doing our work.
Yeah.
We're willing to work hard, just not on us.
Yeah.
And so, she had hit the breaking point, gave him an ultimatum. So they came out to Colorado from the East Coast of the U.S., and they spent 4 days with me. And so we worked together for 8 hours a day for 4 days on their relationship. And amazing things happened. And they left with a completely different marriage, hopeful, in love with each other again, much more awake to what each of them had done to get it to be at that level of breakdown. And I really had a blast. I just noticed, I had so much fun doing this. And because I also was in a relationship that I felt and still feel was pretty extraordinary, I started getting more referrals to couples. And then I realized, well, you can't, as a business person, you can't hang up a sign or have a website that says, I can help you with 10 different things. Nobody's going to hire you. They're too confused. Well,
yeah.
You do this. So I just decided that relationship was my niche.
Yeah.
And so, I work with individuals as much, if not a bit more than couples. But a love relationship is completely dependent on the relationship each person in the relationship has with himself. So the relationship architect brand, if you will, it's applicable to every human being, whether you're in a love relationship or not. I help people design and then build the relationship that they want with a partner if they have one, or to begin designing the one they want for when a partner shows up. And it starts with looking at, well, how's your relationship with you? Because where the relationship with you is off, I guarantee you're out there hunting for a love partner that you think is going to fix that for you. And you won't usually tell them that you're expecting them to fix that. Then when you're not fixing it, you get pissed off and resentful. Then you're going to try and change them. And then you're going to go, well, shit, you're not the right person for me. And you'll go on and you'll wash, rinse, and repeat that pattern for however many times you will until you realize you're the issue, not the other person.
Yeah, I think we've all had those relationships where, we're a few months down the line and the mask or the facade starts to crumble and then you're like, oh, this is a bit weird, actually. And sometimes you don't even realize that that's what's happened, but something's definitely different, and it's just not going to work, is it?
Nope. Nope. I really have come to believe that relationships they're a great playground or sandbox to play in, to bring up everything waiting to grow, heal, and develop in you.
Mm.
But it isn't the relationship that provides that per se. It's just an arena that is going, just because of how relationships tend to work, it's going to bring up stuff you haven't dealt with.
Mm.
So if you're willing to engage in, this is going to grow me, and to embrace that growth, and that you get to do that in partnership with someone you really love, well, that's amazing. And if you're somebody who's been through relationship after relationship after relationship, and a lot of people I've talked to also over the years go, well, I just can't seem to find the right woman or the right man. And I'll point out, how many relationships have you had? Well, so far in my adult life, maybe 9. Okay. And what's the common denominator? Oh.
You.
Right. And so that's when you can begin to realize that the focus and central location of your own growth is right in here. No one else is causing any choice you make to be made. They can be influencing it, they can be triggering something, absolutely. But the way you're experiencing your life, your relationship, your career, all of it, is all a function of how you're relating to yourself, what you believe about yourself, and what bullshit you're believing about yourself.
And I really relate and love what you were saying about when you are in a good relationship, how catalytic it can be, because you're in that arena. And I can certainly say for myself, I've had the biggest shifts in this relationship I'm in now, which I've been in for 5 years. Literally, it's been continuous transformation. So yeah, relationships can do that. They do definitely provide that arena. Yeah. So just moving on, because we haven't got that much time actually, but are there, talking about the men's work side of things, are there some common themes that come up that you've seen that men just need to know, that need to shift?
Yeah, there are a few. So one of them is really believing that there's only one right way to be a man. There is no one cookie cutter way to be a man. There's no one healthy way to be embodying masculine energy. So a lot of conversation in our country, I don't know about the UK, but a lot of conversation about gender roles and about masculine, feminine, what's healthy masculinity, what's as well for women and in men. So that's one common theme. A lot of men who get confused about, well, what kind of man am I supposed to be? Then that ties into beliefs in the way that men look at things to gauge success. So because I tend to I have some guys in our men's community that are in their early to mid-20s, but a lot of guys that are more in the 40s up to 70s. And a big question that is there, regardless of the age, what do I want? Is it okay to want what I want? And how do I be a good man? What does that mean, a good man? So that's a topic. Also, another big issue is for straight men, how do I deal with women? And women's roles have changed. You know, I was a kid when women's liberation began popping up in the US. So women's roles and women's connection to their own power is light years beyond where it was 40, 50 years ago.
Yeah.
And so men are also kind of reeling with, how the hell am I, what are the rules now? Men like rules. We like to fix stuff, and we like a rule book or an instruction manual. And women don't come with an instruction manual.
No.
Really, humans don't come with an instruction manual. So that's another issue, is how do I relate with, how do I be a powerful man with my woman, but not be dominating, not being sexist, not... So all that stuff is a big issue. And then in the interest of time, I'll say one more issue is what we refer to as nice guy syndrome.
Yeah.
And a book that I would recommend to any man who's ever felt like he's not as powerful, as he doesn't feel as powerful as he wants to be, or he ends up being, you know, that type of guy that bends over backwards to do anything for anybody and puts his own needs last. There's a great book out there called No More Mr. Nice Guy by Dr. Robert Glover. And we have a lot of men in my men's group community, which is international, by the way.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of men that feel like they're either completely disrespected by their women, or they feel a lot of resentment because of all this stuff they do for their partner, and they're not getting enough in return, or they're always the peacemaker and puts everybody's needs ahead of their own. Those are all symptoms of a nice guy.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's a big one that we tend to help men break free of.
Excellent. Wise words. Yeah, as we say, in the interest of time, we're going to have to wrap up in a minute. Tell us about your free gift that you've offered.
The free gift that I have out there for folks is a 4-part video series called Relationship Design, The Essentials. And so all 4 parts are a little over an hour. And it is a series that walks you through 4 steps of what you really need to know to design or redesign the relationship you want. And if you're in one, it never hurts to look at how is the design that you've had, even if you never sat down and said, well, let's design. You know, you don't build a house without blueprints. You need a design and you need blueprints. And people don't think about that with relationships. So the series gets you started with 4 areas that you need to be paying attention to consciously, if you're dating or you're in an early part of a relationship, are you dealing with these 4 things to really be conscious creating your relationship? And if you're not, it's never too late to bring them in. So that's the gift that I'm delighted to make available to people.
Wow, thank you very much. That's an awesome resource. Yeah, excellent. So yeah, we're going to have to wrap up. So thank you so much, Geoff, for being on the show. You've just been an absolute wealth of knowledge and inspiration. So thank you so much for that.
You're very welcome. Thank you for having me.
Excellent. Yeah, no problem. And yeah, tune in tomorrow. Well, thank you for watching, and tune in tomorrow for another amazing expert speaker who will divulge all of their amazing wisdom as well. So peace and love to everybody. Cheers.